The topic of this hearing is not really one of the partisan fault lines in American politics, and the Republican staff does not object to our going forward, so we will go forward, but I'll recognize myself now for 5 minutes of questions. I know this isn't fair, and it's a lot more complicated than this. The DoD had different needs from NOAA, but the solution of having NOAA have one satellite with the afternoon orbit and DoD having its own satellite for the morning orbit felt a little like a kindergarten teacher sending two children to different corners because they can't stop arguing. And we do need you all to get along. The DoD needs to get data from NOAA. NOAA needs to get the data from DoD, and we need to make sure that you all will play nice in the future. Mr. Klinger, what plans does DoD have to work with NOAA to make sure they get the data that they need and to make sure that you get the data from NOAA that they have that you need?
Mr. Chairman, I think it's not just the plans that we have. We actually have ongoing interaction right now with both NOAA and NASA. Start with one point. We're going to continue the relationship we've had that I mentioned in my opening statement with respect to ground operations, the ground system and the on-orbit operations. The Defense Department will be dependent, just as it has been, on NOAA for the ground system and for the operations, day-to-day operations, as we are with our current generation, the Defense Meteorological Satellite Program. But looking forward, one of the reasons we are moving very deliberately within the Defense Department is to ensure that we do not take an action unilaterally that inadvertently places any of NOAA or NASA's equities, and specifically the NPP program, in a disadvantaged position. So everything that we are doing with respect to the Defense Weather Satellite System is measured and assessed not just through the lenses that we would normally use on a DoD-only satellite system, which would be defense and/or intelligence equities, but in fact we thoroughly ensure first within the department that we're not going to do something that disadvantages one of our civil partners, whether that's in terms of thinking through what we want to do in the morning orbit, but absolutely with respect to what changes we end up making, if any, to the existing contract. So we and NOAA and NASA, in my view, are inextricably tied together in terms of how we move forward, though, as you pointed out, there will be separate spacecraft programs provisioning the morning and afternoon orbits.
Okay. Ms. Glacken, how about NOAA's plans to play nice?
We're very comfortable with the arrangement we're moving into. We have literally, again, decades worth of history in cooperating with the Department of Defense and sharing meteorological data. We work closely with the Air Force. I've personally established a working relationship with General Sheridan, who's the director of Satellite and Missile Command out in California, that will have oversight of Defense Weather Satellite System. And we've been talking back and forth, as has Mary Keyes, my director of our satellite line office. So I think that we have this experience doing this. We have a lot of commonality among our users for sharing of data there. We work closely through the Office of Federal Coordinator for Meteorology as a central focus for coordinating requirements and things like this. So I'm quite comfortable in moving forward.
Dr. Abbott, does OSTP plan to play a continuing role in assuring the necessary cooperation, information sharing, et cetera, between DoD and
Yes, we
NOAA?
do. Yes, we do, because it is of great interest to Dr. Holdren and myself to see this decision through to an endpoint. And I would add that all along, from the beginning of the task force's operations until reaching a decision, the communication and coordination across the agencies has been extraordinarily good. We've had a lot of difficult moments in which we've had to deal with some issues that were hard to decide, but in fact, the cooperation has been quite good, and we have been able to negotiate through a lot of challenging moments. And I think at the end of the day, we've got a program going forward that is consistent with the visions of the agencies and their particular programs, and it makes some sense for the nation.
Okay, my time has expired. I now recognize myself for a second round of questions. Mr. Powner, you in your testimony in the GAO reports, you said that there are still challenges and uncertainties in a polar satellite program. What is your take on the importance of agency cooperation and what must be done to address any issues there effectively?
Well, just reiterating, touching base on some of the points that were made, I agree with Ms. Glack in that there's decades of experience, but if you look at the NPOS program, that was not a model for interagency coordination. So it's great that Mr. Klinger is making comments and we're going to work together. I think the key thing moving forward is if you look at the first satellites that are planned, the NOAA satellite, JPSS, is almost identical to NPP. I mean, that's the plan, and when you look at the initial plan for DoD, you clearly see their requirements. When you look at the microwave sensing capabilities, the SEM instrument that Mr. Klinger mentioned, I think it would be very important as they go forward with the 4 satellites that there's a sharing of the sensors that will be included so that the different agencies' requirements are considered. That was clearly one of the transition risks that we mentioned in our report, that taking into consideration the other agencies' requirements is still vital moving forward.
Okay. Mr. Powner, you testified that we still do not have a comprehensive plan strategy for climate observation. What is who is it that you think should be in charge of developing that comprehensive policy, that comprehensive plan? How should we go forward to make sure that we correct that deficiency?
Well, I think there's been some initial steps through the Office of Science and Technology Policy. There's an interagency working group, and they've put together some initial plans that lay out the climate observations that we need to ensure that there's continuity. I think there's 17 key observations that they're focused on, and the key going forward is that OSTP continues to exercise that leadership role so that we have the appropriate interagency coordination for continuity of all those key climate observations.
Okay. Ms. Abbott, you, of course, heard the testimony earlier and know the GAO's view on this. What role does OSTP plan to play in making sure there is a comprehensive plan for climate observation?
So as I said in my testimony, now that the NPOS decision is behind us, we actually are going to focus attention on the follow-on to that U.S. Group on Earth Observations report and to try to turn some of those considerations of the 17 priority areas into real priorities aligned with budgets, aligned with agency cooperation and coordination, and developing a strategy from that.
We'll take just a 2-minute recess. I think that there are members who are planning to come back, or there were, and I think we need to check on their status. If not, we'll be done, but we'll be in recess for a couple minutes. And you all can talk among yourselves. I think we'll now be back in. So I understand Mr. Bilray is on his way, but I'll now recognize myself for a third round of questions until he gets here. And these are questions I think that Ms. Dowkemper had intended to pursue had the hearing today not been disrupted. Undoubtedly, the reason that there are so many well-behaved people in the room today is that there are still a lot of unresolved questions about contractors. Certainly Northrop Grumman has been waiting with bated breath for the resolution of some of these issues and perhaps others as well. GAO has criticized the program as not having made the transition decisions necessary. What role do you see for Northrop Grumman in the now two new programs, the now two programs, and what can be done to expedite any decisions made with respect to Grumman? Ms. Glacken.
I think that what I would comment on is NOAA and Department of Defense, I believe, are both very interested in leveraging the expertise and experience and investments that the government has with Northrop Grumman. However, we've made no final decisions in going forward at this point.
Mr. Klinger?
I'd echo what Ms. Glacken said. As I mentioned in my opening statement, one of the things that is a priority to us within the department and also to our our agency counterparts and partners is to maximize the degree to which we can take advantage of the investment that we've made in NPOs. And that, at the first order, includes the expertise that Northrop Grumman as the prime has gained. In general, at the moment, I'd just offer the following, that the contract right now is under the purview of the Air Force and its contracting officer. We're still working through what the specific changes that will attend the restructuring will have, and that may or may not require some renegotiation and changes to the contract. I don't think as a result it's appropriate for me, nor are we really ready at this point to provide those details. There's no question that as the Air Force sorts through that, in the run-up to the deadline of August 10th, the Air Force will prepare and update the acquisition strategy, including the specific contract issues, and those will be submitted through our office to the Undersecretary, Dr. Carter, and then that'll become clear.
Okay. Mr. Pounder, any observations on the need to, or how to expedite issues with contractors, or how to resolve those?
Well, clearly, I think a key decision moving forward will be the size of the bus. In the, clearly with JPSS-1, they decided to go with an NPP-like bus. But the size of the bus will drive decisions. That'll be a key driver going forward in terms of the amount of contract leverage that Ms. Glacken mentioned.
Okay. Well, despite the fact that I have 2 minutes left of my questioning, I will now yield back to myself the balance of my time, and now I recognize Mr. Bilray for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me sort of follow up and ask for sort of a clarification on something that's near and dear to a lot of us that spend a lot of time out in the water. Thousands of Americans, both in the military and civilian, depend on the EPIRG locating devices, the emergency satellite communication systems. And there's an assumption out there that if an aircraft goes down and that EPIRG goes off, that the authorities will be there in a very short period. Will know you're in trouble, know where you are, whatever. What has happened with the search and rescue satellite-aided tracking system in the system, and what's going to be the impact to the consumer on this?
I'd be happy to take that one. I certainly agree with you, sir. Search and rescue capabilities that our satellites provide are really a tremendous benefit to society, and in particular to mariners and aviators. This type of instrument we've flown for some period of time. It turns out to be a highly reliable instrument, and for the most part lasts long after the life of other instruments on a spacecraft. So today, for example, in the afternoon orbit, we have 3 of these that are currently running and operational. With our decision to go with an NPP-like clone, for the JPSS-1, that particular instrument won't fit on that bus. However, we're still searching and we'll be looking at whether we in fact need to fly it because of the redundancy up there and on what platform we'll fly that in that time frame. So that remains an open question now, but you should not doubt our commitment to ensuring the continuity of that capability.
Well, you know, I really worry about seeing that get bumped on this technology because, you know, when we've got a F-18 go down, the system's being depended on for pilots. We require it on American flag boats. We really encourage civilian mariners to carry this, and this assumption that somehow the United States will keep this umbrella protection. I had the experience this last year of losing, being dismasted off of Nicaragua with my family. There was assumption there that if we really, really needed something, we could flip that switch, and with a matter of hours, people would know where we were and we were in trouble. My biggest concern is what is the lag time now, and should we be telling our consumers now that, look, maybe you want to go to the spot system, maybe you want to invest in a private alternative because the federal government's facility is not going to have the coverage or the capability that we said it was going to have within the next couple of years.
Yeah. Congressman Bilbray, I'd like to assure you we will have that capability there. We're committed to providing that. It was part of the JPSS suite. So as we make decisions going forward on exactly how we'll fly that instrument, we'll certainly keep this committee and you informed about that.
Now, without the polar sensors, which are really the locators, I mean, our stationaries can tell us that somebody's in trouble, but trying to figure out where they are precisely is absolutely essential on this. How do we make that assurance if we're not going to have that as part of our polar system?
It will be included in the JPSS system. It's just not going to fly on the first bus that we have announced. So we have more decisions to make, and we'll be making them in the months ahead about how to fly the one climate instrument that isn't flying called TSIS, the Total Solar Irradiance, as well as search and rescue, and there's a third set of instruments known as user services, data collection capability. So all of three of those announcements are yet to come.
That's based on an assumption that there is a budget for this?
That's correct, and there is. The President's fiscal year 11 budget includes all of the resources for that.
Do we have well, that's a proposed budget.
It is a proposed budget, yes.
So, you know, we're still in this thing, and I hope that we all remember we're still operating with a proposed budget from the executive branch, so all of this is still up in the air.
Absolutely.
And so we've got to make sure we condition that if we can get this thing approved, if we can go down there, you're sure on this. Let me go back to this total solar, sensor issue. It almost appears to somebody who would be a skeptic that why would the federal government be backing off on this sensor when we're talking about the potential climate change, whatever? Because I think we all agree the greatest skepticism is coming from those who are saying that the impact of the solar flares and the solar impact on the temperatures is grossly underestimated by models. We're operating off that. To retreat from having those sensors would almost leave some of my colleagues, including my surfing buddy to the right here, to claim that there might be some cynical conspiracy to make sure that data is not collected because it may show that the modeling have grossly underestimated the effect of solar radiation. Yeah. What would you say to my colleague about that kind of perception?
I would like to assure you and the committee that we've not backed off from flying this sensor. We will fly this sensor in this time frame. The announcement that we made to fly an NPP-like bus, which is a smaller bus, is driven by our need to avoid a gap in this afternoon orbit. It represents the lowest technical and schedule solution for us. So we're still working on our exact plans for flying these three sensors that do not fit on that bus, but you should not doubt our commitment to ensuring those will be flown.
Now look, I'm going to be very frank with you, is that the American people watch what's going on in Washington and what's going on with the federal government. There's a lot of people making a lot of promises that affect average Americans' personal lives, their health, their lifestyle, their prosperity. And a lot of people in this city is telling the American people, trust us, we can get this done. Trust us, we can do the job properly. When the American people see the handling of this proposal, where you've got, multiple jurisdictions and what looks like an absolute shambles of a strategy and implementation, I mean, you understand why people really do get concerned when Washington expands its footprint, say we're going to manage personal lives of people better and don't worry about it, and they sit there and say, look, you've got groups like the federal government for a decade has been trying to do electronic medical records and no closer now than they were 10 years ago, or the fact that we're talking about our satellites, and look what you guys did with that. You expect me to trust you with my family's future. How do we tell the American people that, look, we can learn from our mistakes and we can move forward? How can we say that don't use this as an example of how the federal government screws up? What can I tell my constituents out of this experience?
Yeah, I think the restructure of the NPOS program does three things for us. One is it really clarifies the acquisition responsibilities. Number two, it allowed us to propose a budget to the Congress that we think is adequate to cover what's here. And the third is it allows us to align with a proven acquisition center that can bring the government expertise to bear for the oversight of this. As part of that last part of it, I'd like to highlight to this committee that NOAA and NASA will use independent review teams. So over and above what GAO might do in this program, we will use independent review teams to review our plans, assess our progress. We've been doing that with the GOES-R program. We'll be doing that with JPSS as we move forward. So we're not just allowing it to ourselves and our own oversight, but we're seeking independent review as well.
Thank you.
Mr. Rohrabacher is recognized for 5 minutes.
I'd like to thank my colleague for asking the questions in my name, of course. First of all, Mr. Chairman, thank you very much for holding this very significant hearing, and I think the witnesses have given us a lot to think about, and I appreciate the high caliber of witnesses that we have. Notice it said that we've gone from, NPOS has gone from $7 billion in 2002 to $15 billion. Think what could we have done with all of that extra money that Brian was talking about, and I guess we could have given it to Goldman Sachs coalitions and things like that. So there's been a lot of money wasted here in Washington, D.C., a lot of money over the last couple years, and I would hope that this was let me put it this way, this was a try. They were trying to accomplish something, and they did not succeed in accomplishing what they set out to do. And I think that is less of a waste than some of the money that we spent in the last 18 months in the name of stimulus that has gone into the pockets of wheeler dealers on Wall Street, et cetera, et cetera. But back to this. When we're talking about why this failed or how we couldn't reach the goal that we had in mind, one of those things is one of those goals the technology we needed to make the climate determinations. There is a difference between climate and weather, and the technology for this project, between determining what weather is going to be and the whole idea of climate research. Was the technology needed for this climate research, which I consider to be very, very questionable goal in the first place, was that part of the failure that we have here?
No, sir, I don't think it was, because okay. There's a mission flying today that we launched several years ago called Aqua, that is flying sensors that were the, if you will, the predecessors of the sensors that were selected for NPOS. And they are doing climate and weather measurements, although it's a research mission, so it's not tied into the operational stream. So the technology and for accomplishing what NPOS was going to do has been demonstrated. It is flying. And one of those sensors has been flying for over 10 years now.
But it was so that that it would not be accurate to say that climate change, which some of us believe is not man-made and thus we believe, frankly, it's a phony issue, but that commitment to studying that and the technology needed to do that study was not part of the reason why we went from 7 to 15 billion and have not been able to accomplish the mission.
I would not say that the technology was, no.
Okay, does anyone else have a comment on that? Okay. How much was this? Okay, so what do we say is the cause of this debacle? Do we say it was there in fact that was technology that we couldn't develop? Did we have a problem with procurement problems here? Was it the launch systems that we know there was some problem here with which launch systems we were going to be able to do this? Or is this just a lack of, when in the beginning it sounded like it was just we had too much confidence that various bureaucracies could work together. So what was the main driver of this debacle?
I'll take a cut at that and invite my colleagues to chime in here. But I think as this committee heard last year when they did a hearing on this and heard from Tom Young, the independent review team chair, he highlighted several things. One is the overall management structure and because of the agency's missions, responsibilities, their postures and all, the difficulty in being able to provide adequate oversight. He also highlighted to this committee that we were developing this satellite system in a way that neither NOAA, NASA, or DoD would develop one on their own. And that, in fact, meant that we weren't using a proven government acquisition center. So we weren't availing ourselves of talent that we had within the federal government to provide.
So the bureaucracy
oversight.
wasn't right. I mean, it wasn't because it hadn't done this type of thing before, right. And it wasn't the technology. But we have, didn't I hear Mr. Powner suggest that there's still some technological risk at play right now?
Yeah, Mr. Rohrabacher, there's one sensor that has VIIRS, which has caused some problems with some of the overruns that you mentioned, and with JPSS-1, the first NOAA satellite, that's still not out of the woods. But I would directly answer your question to say that every level was at fault with NPOs. There was issues with executive level oversight, with the tri-agency overseeing it. There were issues with program management, managing the program. And there were issues with contractor and subcontractor oversight and performance. So there was almost every layer you look at, there were issues when you look back over the years with what went wrong.
Well, we wish all of you success in trying to put this back together again so that $15 billion that's been invested by the taxpayers don't just go to waste. So if we can, so thank you very much for focusing on this and being very frank with us today. And we will be following this project and hopefully get it done so that we can salvage something out of this effort that's of value to the American people. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
All right, I understand that Ms. Dalkemper is on her way, but no, she was not. Okay. My new information, she will not be here. I now recognize myself for one more round of questions. Mr. Powner, you mentioned the VIIRS sensor as being the one that was the most difficult. Is that for climate research or is that for weather forecasting?
I think when you look at VIIRS, it's probably a combination of a number of things. And clearly VIIRS is on NPP, the demonstration satellite that's going up, but it's also being built for the first NOAA satellite. And in our report being released today, we do mention that that satellite right now is viewed as high risk for that first NOAA satellite.
Ms. Glacken, what will be the effect of a continuing resolution on funding for the 2011 budget year, and will that affect a launch date for the two new programs?
Yeah. The President's fiscal year 11 budget is critical for us being able to move forward with the JPSS program. So in the event of a continuing resolution, I believe we'd work through the administration with Congress to see what our options are to be able to move forward here. We're quite sensitive to the fact that this is proposed as a new program in the 2011 budget, and Congress hasn't made a determination on that yet. So we've been working with both this committee and our appropriation staffs as well in that regard.
Okay, Mr. Klinger, same questions?
Yeah, I'd just echo what Ms. Glacken said, which is that it's imperative that we get those funds to begin the DWSS program. So we will be doing essentially mirroring what NOAA does in the event of a continuing resolution, which is to work through the administration and secure the release of funds that are appropriated.
I like that the two of you are agreeing with each other. That's all right. Ms. Abbott, do we have a comprehensive catalog of our existing assets for Earth observations, and do you have a understanding of the set of observations that need still to be obtained?
The excuse me, the U.S. GEO report that I mentioned before that Mr. Powner spoke of, and their report notice is the first step in developing such a catalog. The agencies got together and identified the seven, through looking through the lens of environmental policy requirements, what are the major observations that are needed to address those policy issues. And so we have what is close to a catalog of needs. What we don't have is the articulation of that catalog against a set of priorities and budgets. And that's the next step.
Mr. Scalisi, I understand that the new JPSS program will be run out of the Goddard Space Flight Center. How many positions, both NASA and contractor staff, do you expect to manage this acquisition, this new program? And how will those staffing levels compare to the INPO's Integrated Program Office, which was projected to have about 170 staff?
Well, let me take it backwards, if you might. One of the reasons that Tom Young suggested that the program be put at an acquisition center isn't because of the number of people that are on the project, but because of the number of people that can support the project. At Goddard or at the Air Force's SMC, we're procuring or building lots of satellites and lots of sensors. And all of that technical capability with our engineering directorates and safety and mission assurance directorates and science organizations in the case of Goddard come to bear to help that organization go off and achieve its goals by having the ability to look across many projects that are some ahead of where you're at, some behind where you're at, some using the same contractors. You can identify issues that a individual project that's isolated, as the IPO was, wouldn't see. So the fact that it's at the Goddard Space Flight Center is probably the most critical element of the program, because you bring all those resources to bear to help the project succeed. As far as the size of the project, it would be about the size of the IPO, about 100 or so civil servants and contractors working it. And the staffing is going to come from very experienced people, as I mentioned in my opening statement. We're bringing some of the best people from our projects. The lead of it will be the very successful leader of the Hubble servicing missions. We're bringing in as their deputy, the person who did the Solar Dynamics Observatory, who's built a number of satellites, and we'll be bringing in people of that caliber, or have already brought people of that caliber from NASA and NOAA and the IPO in to go off and manage this program and oversee it.
I now recognize Dr. Brown for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think Mr. Bilbray had a question. If is that correct? I would yield to Mr. Bilbray.
With the chairman's permission. Question about the sensors. Are we including maintaining capability to be able to detect ozone and suspended particulates?
Yes, we are. We have the OMPS sensor, both the nadir and the limb, as part of JPSS 1.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, just for the record, I know people in this committee have chuckled about the whole concept, but I think that we've really got to understand how important this aspect is of the suspended particulates and its effects and the ozone issue, because there has been legitimate concerns raised about people considering, is global dimming a factor we need to consider or not? And the argument's gone back and forth. But just to articulate how important this could be, if global dimming is a significant issue, as some have said, we have to totally reverse our policies on implementation of climate change legislation, because rather than looking at things like coal, which should be the first operations, I know that makes you upset, first operation shut down, there may be a whole argument to reverse that decision and have it as the last CO emissions shut down, because there may be major short-term benefits there that would help to mitigate. I just want to make sure the good science on this is out there, and this sensing could be a critical component. I just hope we keep our minds open as we develop these strategies. My biggest concern I've seen is too many people are making assumptions based on 1970 concepts when there's a whole lot of new data and technology out there, and this data may be critical at getting those of us in Washington to rethink our entire implementation strategy and actually reversing our implementation strategies based on new data. So I'm glad to hear that. I think it's critical. It'll at least answer some questions and make sure, reassure us that our assumptions may continue to be followed up rather than having to be reversed. And I'll yield back to the gentleman.
I thank the gentleman. Mr. Chairman, I've got some written questions that I will submit for written responses if I could get y'all to do that. And so I'll just ask one question orally today, and that's of Ms. Abbott. OSTP has stated that this is a restructuring and not a cancellation. How do you believe this affects the Nern-McCurdy law, which says that 15% over budget, Congress has to be notified, 25%, it has to be reauthorized? So how do you think this affects the Nunn-McCurdy law?
Mr. Congressman, I'm not an expert on the Nunn-McCurdy law, but I think that the restructuring that we have proposed is not over those limits. And I think that as we move forward with the DoD portion of this program, we will have a better sense of what the costs are going forward.
If it does go over, or is Congress going to be informed about this, and
Yes.
will you divide the programs, or what's your plan regarding that?
Dr. Brown, if I may, since Nunn-McCurdy is focused mainly on DoD acquisitions, perhaps I can elaborate a little bit on
Mr.
that.
Klinger.
Yes, yes, sir. From our calculus right now, the restructuring does not constitute a breach under the Nunn-McCurdy statute, nor would, although our estimates are not final with respect to the funding profile associated with the Defense Weather Satellite System, we are working within the funds that we had previously planned to use for our share of NPOs. So we believe that the DWSS, as it moves forward, would not cross any of the Nunn-McCurdy breach thresholds. But if for some reason there were a breach, by definition, we would do the necessary reporting and subsequent work for recertification.
Does this mark a rebaseline?
There will be a new acquisition strategy for the DWSS, and there will be a new acquisition program baseline that the Air Force will bring forward to OSD as part of the definition of the new program, or of the restructured DWSS.
Well, I look forward to hearing back from you guys what's going to go on with that. So,
yes, sir. We'll be happy to do that.
Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. That ends the questioning at the hearing. Dr. Brown has already said that he has questions he'll submit in writing. I may as well. Other members may. Before we bring this hearing to a close, I want to thank our witnesses for testifying before our subcommittee today. Under the rules of the committee, the record will remain open for 2 weeks for additional statements from members and for answers to any follow-up questions the subcommittee may have for the witnesses. The witnesses are excused and the hearing is now adjourned.